Hello everyone and welcome back to another DST video. Today I'm going to be discussing my top 10 favorite class combos. And one thing I want to note is these aren't actually specifically my top 10 favorite. They're just 10 of some of the best combos that I've kind of noticed throughout the game while I've been making it. But I was going to do a video which is just like the best subclass for every single class. And I quickly realized that ranking every single class as a subclass for every single class means that there's like 1,400 different like rankings I would have to give, and I can't do that. First of all, if I did it fast enough for it to be one video, it would be a very, very fast video, and it would be kind of just like too much information too quickly. Keep in mind that even if I give every single class just 1 minute of time explaining it, it would still take 1,400 minutes, which is like hours of time. That's like a 7 hour video, I think, if I did my maths correctly. I didn't do the math, actually. I just estimated. Anyway, the point is, we're going to talk about the top just 10 class combinations or subclass combinations that work really well in the DST system. If you don't know what the DST system is, there's a video linked in the description which basically explains the whole system and how it works. But right now, that all of my why can't I talk? Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna assume that you know how it works. If you don't know how it works, go check. If you do, cool. Let's get started. All right. I've got pre-marked places, and I'm gonna make my brush purple for my new marks. But first thing first, we're gonna talk about the Barbarian with Rogue as a subclass, or the Rogue with Barbarian as a subclass. And now some of these classes will have one of them specifically being the main class and the other one being the subclass. I do recommend Barbarian being your main class in this scenario, just because starting Barbarian I think is better than starting Rogue, but the free feat from starting Rogue isn't bad, and you'd have more skill proficiencies if you started Rogue. So either really work, but the main concept you're going to be pulling here is we want to be getting sneak attack. Why is Krita lagging? Hello? Krita? What's wrong? Oh, I'm dumb. That's what's wrong. Okay. I tried to draw on a layer that didn't exist. Okay, anyway, point is, the main thing we're trying to be getting here is sneak attack plus reckless attack. The combo of the two, meaning that you can basically, at the start of your turn, reckless attack to make sure that all of your attacks that turn have advantage. Sneak attack says that when you have advantage on an attack, you can sneak attack. So you by yourself create advantage on every single one of your attacks so that you can always sneak attack. That's the basic concept behind it. And there's a lot of different ways you can kind of take this afterwards. After all, this is only a 5-node like combo, so you could realistically get this at level 2. But the best part about it is you get a lot of rogue utility for outside of combat. So when you're not using this reckless attack sneak attack combo, you can be grabbing things like retrained past to get extra utility outside of combat. You can get things like skilled and expertise, or you can even get things like blind sense with rogue if you want to go more into the combat side of things. And cunning action is another thing that barbarians love to use. So basically, the rogue really does help with the barbarian either inside and outside of combat for extra damage and for utility in the skill department. But it doesn't end there, because barbarian can help the rogue out a lot too. Retaliation, which is, to be fair, quite a bit further. It is on the same path that you need to take to grab reckless attack, although, so you only need about 5 more nodes after that, so that's another 3 levels. So by level, say, 5, you could have this whole combo going. Assuming you don't take any rogue levels. But I would recommend taking this, Barbarian as your main class, 2 nodes, 1 node in rogue, and then just split level every single time so that you're getting this nice D12 hit dice and getting just a few extra bonuses from rogue while you level up and get reckless attack, and then start moving your way towards retaliation. The point of retaliation is that you can now sneak attack on other people's turns, because retaliation says that you can make an attack with your reaction as long as you're attacked. Very, very good. It also gives you extra rage damage on the way, and brutal critical, which isn't necessarily super useful on a Barbarian Rogue, but it isn't terrible to have either. The other thing that you can keep in mind is if you want to be a more roguish Barbarian, well, we can grab things like ranged rage to kind of be a... Somebody's printing something. Right? Ranged rage works really well if you want to still be that typical rogue style where you're kind of slinking around in the shadows, launching a knife or a dagger every so often into the combat to slam out a sneak attack. Well, now, reckless attack and rage still can help with that, because you can be using ranged rage to still play the classic rogue. But if you want to be using even better sneak attacks, getting crit range off, which again, it's on the same path as reckless attack, although retaliation does not get you there faster, you can grab crit range, because that means that whenever you sneak attack and crit, that crit range being increased, you get crit sneak attack, which is, everybody knows that critical hit with a sneak attack is really good, and that's one of the reasons. And the final things I want to talk about is Slippery Mind plus Mindless Rage. These are two different things you can pick up, one on the Barbarian, one on the Rogue. This basically makes the downside of the Barbarian, which is that they kind of have no defenses against being like mind controlled or stuff like that, charmed. Well, Mindless Rage helps with that, making it impossible. Or you can grab Slippery Mind from the Rogue while you're on your way to grabbing things like Expertise, more sneak attack dice, and reliable talent to make you even really, really good in utility situations. But Slippery Mind just basically gives you wisdom throw proficiency. It gives you wisdom throw saving throw proficiency. Anyway, point is, great pickup on a Barbarian. And the other thing that I think is really good, and this kind of mixes with the sneak attack plus reckless attack style, is elusive plus reckless attack. So if you have sneak attack, reckless attack, and elusive, which is over here, so you kind of have to take a pretty large path to get there. Elusive says that you cannot have any attacks against you be done with advantage. It negates advantage on any attacks against you, which means that you can reckless attack, sneak attack with that reckless attack, and suffer none of the consequences. Which means that if you do want to have Rogue be your main class, and you kind of negate most of the benefit of being like a Barbarian high hit dice character and kind of stop being the tank, Elusive basically it negates the bad part of reckless attack, which is usually a good thing for Barbarians because they want to get hit. But anyway, that was my first set of classes here. Barbarian with Rogue as your subclass, or Rogue with Barbarian as your subclass. Either are really good classes in my opinion, and I think they jive well together. Next, I want to talk about Cleric with... Well, actually, Gladiator with Cleric as your subclass is what I should say. See, Gladiators grant Charisma as a spell stat, and Clerics care about Charisma to some extent at the very least. Most importantly, Charming Knowledge over here is something that's really nice for Clerics because it gives them extra spells prepared, which is really nice. And not a bad thing to have going for you when you can be using not only the higher hit dice, not only the higher hit dice of Gladiator, which is a D10 instead of a D8, but also Charisma as your spell stat. But the more important thing to keep in mind is that Channel Divinity and Tempo Choice are really good pairs. Basically, there's more printing happening. Can you even hear that? My printer keeps turning on because my roommate is using it to print stuff. It's very funny. Anyway, Channel Divinity and Tempo Choice work really well together. As you can see, Tempo Choice you can get to by taking this path here or this path here. This path down here is technically slightly slower, but it gives you abilities that have nothing to do with the net abilities. If you want to play a net Gladiator, Cleric, you can, but you can also take vigorous attacks, which is a pretty nice feature to grab on Gladiator anyway, so I would be opposed to taking the upper path and go for the bottom path, even though it's one node shorter. And then after that, you can also take Channel Divinity and grab any of the Channel Divinities that I've circled. This, the Holy Spell does not work for this combo because it is a bonus action, not an action to use. But basically, Tempo Choice says that you can use Vigor to use any action that's not the attack action and not casting a spell. Well, Channel Divinity is not casting a spell, and Turn Undead, Path to the Grave, Restorative Gaze, and Balm of Peace are all actions to use. Which means that you can basically, whenever you feel like on your turn, even if you've already used your action and bonus action for other stuff, throw out a Turn Undead or a Path to the Grave. This means that you realistically you can Path to the Grave combo with yourself, which is kind of awesome. Although if you have like a rogue or a swashbuckler or something better in your party, I'd recommend using it to combo with them. But things like Balm of Peace and Restorative Gaze are also great to just throw at every turn. I mean, there's a reason they're actions, because it's really strong to use, you know, an action for something support based. I mean, technically Turn Undead is also kind of a damaging ability if you get all the way to Destroy Undead, but the point is, being able to not only attack on your turn, but also use a Channel Divinity is very cool. I also would recommend taking the, I think it's Cleric Initiate feat, because that gives you another Channel Divinity. There's a bunch of other action-based Channel Divinities on the Crusader, so you could also take Crusader as your other subclass, or just dip them as a multi-class later on if you feel like it's just, you know, a few nodes in. Point is, I think that this overarching concept is very cool. I also think that, to be fair, Clerics are full casters, and Gladiators do have a little bit of spellcasting potential down this path, which means that if you, instead of wanting to go for the Tempo Choice thing here, you could just grab this, although I think the Tempo Choice is very, very strong mixed with Cleric. Overall, I would say that there's a lot of different options to like kind of mix and match between these two classes, and I think they're a really good pair together. But next, we've got another martial and caster, although this one is way more of a gish than the last. We've got the Dragoon and the Thaumaturge. And at first, you might think that these are very, very kind of weird together, but keep in mind, one of the recent changes that I made is that a lot of the classes, especially the ones in F tier and D tier, in my starting, what the heck did I call that video? Main class? That's main class. I can't remember my own video title. Anyway, it was the video that I made where I ranked all the classes based off their starting benefits. The Dragoon got really low in that video, and for great reason. Basically, it was one of the classes that got updated recently. I think I did this like last week or something. I updated and fixed all the starting benefits of all the classes, and I did so, and I already updated them and put them in the docs linked in the description. But one of the changes was that Dragoons now have the ability to spend skill points to cast with strength instead of whatever your regular casting stat is. But in order to do so, you need to start Dragoon, which means that if you use Dragoon as your starting class in this situation, start Dragoon, you can basically cast and use strength as your casting stat, which means that strength can now be your most important stat, because you can cast with it and you can make attacks with it. Guess what else really cares about strength? Fearful spells, because Fear into Strength says that as long as you make an attack with strength, you can basically expend as fear dice, roll it, and deal extra damage based off that fear dice. And then if your attack hits, you get to regain that fear die, which is basically means that you get to constantly have an extra D10 of like potency on all of your attack damage rolls, which is crazy good. Mix that with like flinging skilled strikes into those, and you've suddenly got the ability to dump a ton of extra damage on. Not to mention you can get extra attack or +1 attack going down either of these routes on Dragoon itself. Basically, you can become a very single abilities-dependent character by using only strength, casting all of your strengths, like all of your Thaumaturge spells with strength, and you can even pick up things like Terrifying Arcana, because Terrifying Arcana cares about how many fear dice you have, not how many, you don't have to expend one to roll it, which means that suddenly it's, it's even better because now your DC on your strength-based casted spells is not only going to be really high because you have probably a +5 to your strength modifier, but you're going to be able to add like 2 or 3 to that DC based off the amount of fear dice you have stored up, which means that you can be very, very gishy, both really good at attacking and really good at casting spells. The only danger of playing a class like this is that you really do need a lot of these skill points, because if you run out of skill points, you can no longer cast spells using strength, and you'll have to be relying on that intelligence score, which probably isn't going to be as high as your strength score. But do keep in mind that, Constitution is also important for Thaumaturges. For example, Selfish Phobia really, really does care about what your Constitution score is, meaning that you can actually have a really high strength and Constitution for great hit points, great casting, and great damage on all of your martial abilities as well. So I think this is a really cool and unique Gish, because it's a Gish that doesn't take any Gish levels, and it's a Gish that doesn't care about your casting stat in the typical sense, because the casting stat is actually strength. Next up, we're going to be talking about a set of classes that really, really, I wouldn't say they necessarily jive and work quite as well together as the others, but I think this is a great example of how well my system kind of functions as far as making classes work together no matter what. The Wizard plus the Druid. It doesn't matter which one of these you start as your main class. I would recommend Druid in this situation, honestly, just because you already have a ton of caster level progression with both of these combined anyway, and so the starting benefits of Wizard, which is faster spell progression, isn't as useful as it would be otherwise. Basically, the combo here is the fact that Druids have some of the fastest spell progression in the game, especially taking this path here. You can get really high caster levels really quick. Mix that with a subclass of Wizard, and you can get really high caster levels really quick. You see, the combo here is basically just take the 2 best spellcasters in the game and mix them together. In regular D&D, this doesn't work because you'll be having to cast some of your spells with intelligence and some of them with wisdom. But if Druid is your main class, wisdom is your spell stat, period. All of your wizard spells will be cast using wisdom because Druid is your main class, and vice versa if wizard is your main class. If you instead choose wizard to be your main class, you cast all of your spells using intelligence, even the ones you get from Druid. They'll be cast with intelligence. It only matters on which one is your main class. And so the reason these all work together is because not only do Wizards and Druids just get great features casting wise, but they both have very varied spell lists, which means that getting both the classes' spell lists and full access to them, technically both having prepared based spell casting, means that you can mix and match a bunch of different preparation and spellbook preparation. You can mix a bunch of things like ritual spells from both the Druid and the Wizard spell list, put them all in your spell book when you're picking your spells, so that you can have a ton of ritual spells and access to them. You get a ton of things, and put all of that together and mark on top that you can also gain Wild Shape. It's not going to be as strong if you're going the fast spellcaster way, but Wild Shape is a good feature on any class, so Wizards love it. So I don't really have much else to say about the Wizard-Druid combo. They're just good because they're both really good classes, and my system allows basically any class combo to work if you try hard enough. And that is the main point I was trying to get across. Next up, we've got the Valkyrie and the Guardian. See, the Valkyrie and the Guardian is a bit different than the other ones I want to talk about. And I wanted to try to make every single one of these classes in this video unique in the sense of, like, I didn't want to do repeat classes, but I couldn't help myself with the Guardian, because the Guardian is just such a fun class to mix and match with other classes. The Valkyrie I also wanted to use multiple times, but I was able to keep myself down to just this one combo here. Valkyrie's form is an action to use. Taunt is a bonus action to use, which means that if you action to go into Valkyrie's form and then use your bonus action to start taunting enemies, well, now you're harder to hit because you're in your Valkyrie's form and you're flying around, and your taunt is going to, you're going to be able to keep taunting enemies every single turn with your bonus action while you use your action to maintain your Valkyrie's form. So there really isn't any direction I want to recommend with this class combo, other than the fact that if you take Guardian as your main class or Valkyrie as your main class, the other one is a great subclass for whatever you're wanting to do. You're going to want to stick to mainly this half of the Guardian here. You could get a little bit of armor proficiency and stuff like that from this middle path as well if you really wanted to, but overall, it doesn't really matter which direction you go with the Valkyrie as long as you ignore parts of the Valkyrie that care about basically using your bonus action. So I would recommend ignoring necessary violence, like don't get that a feature. And there's a few other abilities that aren't going to be very useful if you're trying to use your bonus action with the Valkyrie features, because you're going to want to save your bonus action for using taunts. Get all of these different taunts that help you taunt better and taunt more effectively. Do not grab you and me. It doesn't work in this situation because you want to stay on the battlefield so that your Valkyrie's shedding can help your allies out. So instead you can grab things like Frosty Protection and, you know, Vigilant Rebuke and stuff like that, so that you can basically every single turn spend your action on your Valkyrie half of the class and your bonus action for your Guardian side of the class. And so also don't grab Command unless you want to go for Ascendant Command, but I wouldn't even recommend that, because grabbing Ascendant Command and then letting another teammate become a Valkyrie for one turn isn't going to help much. The point of the matter is, I would say that Guardian and Valkyrie work so well together because Guardian cares a lot about your bonus action and Valkyrie cares a lot about your action. So you can mix and match them specifically in that manner. Next, I want to talk about one that probably I'm guessing a lot of people didn't think this one would be on the list, but it is here. Shaman plus Alchemist. Now, what is the combo I'm going for here? Well, one of the most important or most common damage types from like monsters is poison damage. It is a very high, especially in the early levels. There'll be a lot of like monsters and such that use a bit of extra poison damage on top of their attacks, which means that when you're playing a shaman and you're mage tracing, you'll be getting a lot of poison-based attacks. Poison damage is also one of the most commonly resisted damage types, and flat-out immune damage types a lot of times too. So the important combo here is Mage Tracing plus Intense Brew. This is not too far away from starting Alchemist. You can basically get this combo with 2 nodes in Shaman and only 5 nodes in Alchemist, which means that if you want to take Alchemist as your main class and then go Shaman as your subclass, that might work well, but keep in mind that Constitution will only be your spell stat if you have Shaman as your main class. So I would still recommend Shaman as your main class, subclass Alchemist, but keep in mind that you don't have to split level every single time you're leveling with these characters, because they both have a D4 hit dice, which means that you can take full levels in Alchemist and suffer none of the consequences of that D4 hit dice, because D4 hit dice is what you're going to be rolling no matter what. Once you get Intense Brew, though, all of your poison damage ignores resistance, treats immunity as resistance, and whenever you try to inflict the poison condition, if they are immune to the poison condition, the enemy instead gains advantage on the saving throw, but cannot be immune to the condition anymore when it's applied by you. They still get affected by the poison condition despite being immune to poisoned, which means that Alchemist mixed with Shaman means you can take advantage of all those high damaging and high poison inflicting abilities that monsters have by mage tracing them. And if your TM doesn't want to give you any poison creatures, well, Nature Dream, Chaos Dream, Dream Tracing, both instances, you can go ahead and grab your own instances of poisonous creatures to mix with Intense Brew. Not to mention the fact that alchemists get spellcasting of their own capabilities. And so if you want to grab the alchemy magic and then go down this path here to grab beastly concentration and mental fortitude, you can be double concentrating on like warlock spells, which warlocks loved concentration-based spells. They have a ton of really good ones, like the Black Tentacles, Hex, crazy great abilities that you can be, mixing and matching with each other. Not to mention can tracing, of course, is concentration as well, so you can have two cantrips up at the same time. But realistically speaking, I'm going to think that you're probably using this with alchemy magic if you're going for this combo. The only other thing I'm going to bring up quick is that, again, D4 hit dice, you're going to have low health, but you can grab, Pot of Brew and Red Vial, Inspiring Chug to basically keep dishing out powerful shaman spells and keep getting those spell slots back with Inspiring Chug while you keep your health alive with Red Vial so that creatures have a harder time dealing damage to you. And so overall, I think that the Shaman Alchemist pair is a really, really solid combination. Green Vial also works for this situation. I just wanted to talk about this side because Inspiring Chug is so useful for being a blaster type character. Next up, we've got probably my favorite overall class combo ever, mainly because I love both of these classes so much, and their combination together working makes me so happy. Investigator plus Magus. In this situation, Investigator is not your main class. Magus is your main class. Now, Magus did get a starting benefit boost. They get more health now, but the main feature here is that Intelligence is your spell stat, which means investigators don't need to worry about that crappy starting spell stat of Wisdom, because they can instead use Intelligence, which is what they care about. Are you going to have any strength on this character? No. Are you going to be attacking with Intelligence anyway? Oh yeah, you are. Devise a stratagem plus spell strike. Devise a stratagem allows you to make a roll, basically an attack roll, ahead of time at the start of your turn. And then later on, when you are actually making an attack roll, you can choose to use that devise a stratagem instead of making an attack. If you know you rolled a 25 to hit, and you already know the creature's AC is like 19, you can spell strike without any worry of it missing. Because you know what you rolled, and you know the attack's gonna hit. So dump a crazy strong, debilitating, whole person or something into that spell, and now the monster cannot move. Or, monster, it'd have to be a hold monster if you want to do a monster. But my point is, you can choose any Magus spell that you were going to choose to launch at your creature, and know that they will be hit by it, because Investigator says, I know when I'm going to hit. And if you're not going to hit, well, just don't make a normal attack, and on a miss, it doesn't matter because you didn't choose to do spell strike on the attack that you weren't positive was going to hit. The point of this combo is that Intelligence matters so much for both of you now, because especially if you get Devise Efficiency, you can now be making that with extra Intelligence-based attacks instead. You don't even need Gish levels here in order for this to work really well. Mix this with the fact that you can grab things like Ritualist, more spellcasting over here, and now you can be really utility-based from your Magus spells. But guess who's the best utility character in the game? The Investigator! Grabbing any of the abilities over here is going to make you really, 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 really good in social situations. Convincing Argument cares about Intelligence. Guess what we care about? Intelligence. Guess what we make our attacks with? Intelligence. You are super sad as in single ability score dependent. And that's a good thing. You don't even need to care about strength because the device effectively allows you to attack with intelligence instead of strength, basically. And guess how far that is away? Well, Spell Strike and starting Magus are only 2 nodes, and this is only 6, which means you can have this sucker online by just level 3. That's when most characters in regular D&D get their subclass, which means that you'll probably be starting at level 3 anyway. And overall, I love this pairing so much, and I think if I was going to play in an actual game, this would be the first combo I would reach for, because it's so fun. Next, we've got a pairing that I just think is really funny. It's not really that strong, but I do think it's really funny, and you know what? I'm just going to show you. So, Trainer and Artificer. Both classes that allow a lot of customizability with things like Classic Infusion, and your companion being able to grab things like Clashed Creature and True Bond to choose class features from other classes. What does this have to do with anything? Well, if you take Classic Infusion as your True Bond when you get it, and then move on up to Classed Creature, and take Infusions as the classed creature, you can now have a pet that gives out infusions of their own. So the real joke here is that you basically can become a double artificer because your pet can also be an artificer. But it doesn't even stop there, because when you take classic infusion, you can go ahead and copy the companion ability with classic infusion. So then you can hand out gear to your teammates, and that gear comes with a pet. So you can basically be like a team of let's say you have 4 people in your party, you and 3 others. You are a trainer artificer. Let's say your pet is really good at tinkering, so they're also an artificer. And you guys make these robot tools that have robot pets attached to them. And so you hand them out to all their teammates, and now all 3 of your teammates have a chest plate or a wrist guard or a sword or something that has an attached robot pet that comes alongside, and when they are attuned to that item, now they have their own companion. So you can be a team of all companion-based party members, not to mention the fact that you can have a literally tinkering companion is so fun. Anyway, it's more funny than it is actually useful. I do think it's really nice that you can basically grab things like Armored Critter and Effective Pause to allow your companion to also use infusions if you want to give them out gear. But overall, I just think this is a really funny combination. So next up, we'll be talking about something that is actually way stronger. We've got the Chieftain plus the Ranger. Now, I actually have somebody in my current campaign that is actually playing this combination. Chieftain is their main class, and Ranger is her subclass. So, basically, both being Wisdom-based spellcaster, if I can talk properly, Wisdom being important to both of them is the main thing that matters here. Basically, Convincingly Wise plus Pressing Mark is one of the best feature combinations as well. Pressing Mark allows you to add your Wisdom modifier whenever you're doing a social check, charisma-based abilities. Convincingly Wise says the same thing. Now, Pressing Mark, you need to have marked prey with them, but that's not a hard thing to do before you go up and talk to somebody. So this means that you can not only add your charisma modifier, but your Wisdom modifier and your Wisdom modifier, which means that if you have a +3 to Wisdom, that just makes all of your charisma checks a +6, ignoring proficiency. And ignoring your charisma. If you have a charisma of even just +1, that's a +7 to your charisma checks with just these 2 skills active. And look at how quick you can get to both of them. This is a 5-node dip over here. This is a 5-node dip over here, and it's a 5-node dip, it's actually 6-node dip over here. No, that's a 5. I'm bad at counting. So 10 nodes into this character, you can have both of these skills active at the same time. But keep in mind, they aren't necessarily even a combo with each other. They're a combo with your wisdom skill, which means that if you just get pressing mark, it's already really good. It's just extra good when you have both of them online at the same time. Mix that with strong mind, and you can start adding your wisdom modifier to your Tulpa's damage attacks. Guess what really likes to make a lot of attacks? The Chieftain. The Chieftain loves making a ton of attacks, especially if you get to combo. You can start adding all of the attacks that you would have made if you took the attack action mixed with theirs. And if you get twin attack, that means both of you can attack at the same time. Grab extra Tulpa attacks so that they can make another attack. Grab, extra attack of your own volition and grab +1 attack of your own volition. Now you can make 3 attacks. They can make 2 attacks, and you mix those together to get a ton of extra attacks whenever you take flurry blows in combo. And guess what loves to stack damage on to attacks? Mark Prey. Mark Prey, grab Fry Prey. Now you'll be adding a D4 and a D6 to every single one of those 10 attacks that you'll be making with combo. Put Blister Prey on. Now it's a D8 extra. Scorch Prey, D10 extra. Melt Prey, a D12 extra damage onto every single one of those damaging attacks. And again, those stack. If you have 4 attacks and you have Fry Prey and Blister Prey, you will be dealing whatever the normal damage is on each one of those attacks, plus a D4, a D6, and a D8 onto every single one of those attacks. I said every instead of every. So basically, lots of ways to not only get attacks, because again, Chieftain also has access to extra attack, which means that if you want to ignore this instance of extra attack, you can grab the one over here. If you want to ignore this +1 attack, you can instead grab extra Tulpa attack. You can grab twin attack to get both of your I actually think twin attack is one of the most important ones, but you can get that via the push feat. Guess what else you can get instead of taking the push feat? Thought of choice. There's 2 instances of thought of choice which you can use to grab these features from your ranger. And you can grab other class features too, but the point of the matter is that they work so well together. Not to mention the fact that, Chieftain has some casting bonuses, like psychic casting over here in enforced thought form. But you get casting benefits from Ranger. And so I just think that these two classes combo in so many different ways that I had to bring up the combo, especially since it's being used in my current campaign right now, and it's really effective. And the final one that I'm going to talk about is possibly the strongest combo I can think of right now. The strongest combo of classes. Guardian plus Samurai. Now this is going to take a little bit of time to come online. You need to get all the way down to quick interactions in order for this to work properly. But command. Command is not an attack action. It is the command action. And you can command a teammate to do whatever you want as long as you could also perform that action. So the attack action is probably the most common one you'll be using here. You use your action to command your ally to take the attack action. Quicker Interactions says that once you get this feature, every single turn, you have an extra action that you can use to take any action that's not casting a spell and not the attack action. Use Quick Interactions to take the command action. And now, your teammate can do something with their reaction. Every single turn, you get a free command. Now, that's not that weird. I mean, Guardian is based around the fact that you'll be using your action to use command. But Quick Interaction doesn't use your action, which means that you can use all of this powerful attack-based potential that the Samurai has to offer to make an attack of your own. So you can be an attacking full Samurai that has just 2 nodes in Guardian to just give free attacks to your allies every single turn in combat. Not to mention, if you want to go further into Guardian, further down the command line, there's some really great features on here. If you've watched the video about Guardian, Guardian's a really good class, especially with all of this potency on the command side of their class. They've got great armor bonuses that you can get by going down the middle path, And even if you wanted to, you could realistically go taunt as well. This is great half as well. Which means that no matter what you do as far as getting Guardian, as long as you grab command, it's a great combo. They both have a D10 hit dice, and you get to pick between Charisma and Wisdom as your spell stat, depending on which one you start as. But Samurais just have some really crazy offensive capabilities with extra attack and +1 attack on, innately in their class, which means that if Samurai is your main class, you'll be taking 1 node in Samurai every level, 1 node in Guardian every level, and just building up this commanding presence or more armor for better defenses. Or you could just basically take just command and just keep going Samurai. And Samurai is a good class by itself. It's basically a fighter, but like more into attacking specifically, which basically means that Samurais plus Guardian is a crazy combo once you get quick interactions up. And you can basically think of quick interactions as being, basically, quick interactions is like an extra attack feature that stacks with extra attack, which stacks with +1 attack, which means that if you grab quick interactions first, now you plus one of your teammates is up to 2 attacks total for that round of combat. Then you can start making your way towards extra attack. Before you get to this extra attack feature, that teammate that you're going to be using quick interactions to give another attack with probably just got another attack on their turn with a feature like extra attack themselves, which means that you make 1 attack, they make 2, and then you get extra attack, so now you can make 2. And then you get +1 attack, so now you can make 3. And if they get +1 attack off that, that's 6 attacks every turn cycle with your 1 action, which is crazy efficient. Point of the matter is, I think this is one of the strongest combos, and it is the final combo that I'm talking about today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would really love it if you left me a like. This is going to be a thumbs up. Oh, that's cursed. And subscribe. Subscribe. That's legible, right? Yeah. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.